The Cardinals have finally done it. Nolan Arenado has been traded to the Arizona Diamondbacks. It only took 15 months, but he is off of the team and he is somewhere else, and we're paying the vast majority of the contract. Thank you for tuning in to the St. Louis Cardinals Daily Podcast. My name is Andrew Teuscher. I knew it would happen. I've been saying it's going to happen. I even said it's going to happen and he's going to go to the Diamondbacks. The point isn't to linger on that. It feels weird now that it has finally happened that Nolan Arenado, the guy who's been here for years, been a cornerstone of the team, gets the biggest cheers in all of the stadium ever since Yachty left, is now found himself off of the roster. And while the Cardinals are still paying for him like he is here, the biggest part of this deal was certainly that Nolan Arenado got moved so that we could clear a spot in our roster and save whatever money we possibly could. I was hoping it'd be something like half. We'd pay half of his remaining salary. We're paying far more than that. Nolan Arenado was set, or is still set, to get paid $42 million through the end of this contract. And well, of that $42 million to not be on the Cardinals, $26 million of that will be coming from the St. Louis Cardinals. $26 million, meaning the Arizona Diamondbacks for 2 years of Nolan Arenado will only be paying $11 million. A projected $6 million next year and $5 million in the year following. But wait, that's still another $5 million that's sitting out there. Good job for those of you who paid attention in math class. Yes, simple arithmetic. The Colorado Rockies are still paying $5 million of Nolan Arenado's salary in the year 2026. Hey, people are saying we got fleeced in this deal. The Rockies are still paying for this man's salary and for how long he was on the Cardinals. That just has to be pointed out. In return, the Cardinals are getting back Jack Martinez, the 2025 8th-round pick who will not be ranked in the Cardinals' top 30 prospects. MLB Pipeline already came out and said it. Hey, they still need to update their prospect rankings, so don't worry, this guy won't be on that top 30 anyway. So why do it? Why on earth would we trade away the guy who finished third in the MVP voting in 2022, who is a potential Hall of Famer? Chaim Bloom as much as said so. Why on earth would we do it? And here's why. This is not the Nolan Arenado from 2022 who just got traded, and this is not the Cardinals from 2022 who are trying to contend for the division and for potentially an NL pennant. This is a very different team. If Cardinals fans have dozed off and not paid any attention to what they have been doing this entire offseason, have been saying, this move puts it at the forefront. This is where the Cardinals are now, and fans need to be ready for it. Firstly, Nolan Arenado is 35 years old this year. Okay, he's really getting up there in age. He's a guy who really relied on his athleticism, not in the sense that he was quick, but in the sense that his swing was unorthodox, and we could see after that 2022 season him slowly degrade into what he is now. He did not age nearly as well as Paul Goldschmidt, who was still raking at age 35. He was a shell of himself in 2025, was Nolan Arenado. He batted .237 with a .289 on-base percentage. Oh, don't worry. He's a slugger. He's not there to get on base. He had a .377 slug. So the dude was hardly getting on base, and when he was hitting the ball, it was not going very far. He only finished with 12 home runs, 52 RBIs, and if you're an advanced stats guy, an OPS plus of 87, meaning average is 100 in OPS plus. He was 13% below the average hitter. That's about how above average someone like Brendan Donovan is at hitting. That's pretty well below average for what Nolan Arenado was. Yes, his defense was still good. It certainly wasn't there before. Oh, and not to mention, he played 107 games last year. He's getting hurt. His body is wearing down, and we traded him away to free up a roster spot. And I'm not coming out here to say that Nolan Arenado is completely washed. I've been saying on podcasts here before that Nolan Arenado still has something to offer despite his 660 OPS. I would be a hypocrite if I said otherwise. I thought it would make sense that the team would still want him. He has a purpose, but it is not that of an MVP. We did not trade much more than a platoon player away, because that's what the Diamondbacks are getting in return here. The Diamondbacks are getting a platoon player that they essentially just signed to a 2-year, $11 million contract. And don't act like Chaim Bloom didn't go out and shop around Nolan Arenado. He didn't just take the first deal that came his way. This is what the market says he is. A player that the teams are willing to pay 2 years, $11 million. And basically give up nothing, being Jack Martinez. So if he was a free agent, that was the contract he just signed to. And I think if he was a free agent and that's what he signed, people would be more understanding of where he is. He's a shell of himself. He's a platoon player to come in and hit lefties, and he's going to play decent defense. That is a player worth having. The Diamondbacks, you should be glad that your team made an addition like this and gave up very little and have very little financial obligation. Cardinals fans, you shouldn't be disappointed. You should be disappointed that we had to make this deal. You shouldn't be disappointed that this is what the deal was. I'll read a quote here by Chaim Bloom in a second, but this is just where the Cardinals are now. They traded away a guy who's going to be a platoon player at best, and they freed up a roster spot. So this is where my opinion comes into it. We did this to free up space to bring up J.J. Wetherholt. Objective of trading players is twofold when you're in a rebuild. One, get back prospects. Of course, that is always a benefit of this. But an additional consideration, and the main consideration for trading away Nolan Arenado, is free up an infield spot for a young guy to come up and play, because in 3 years or 2 years, when the Cardinals wish to maybe contend for a wild card spot, if we're dreaming big, you have that opportunity. You have a player who's now seen MLB experience, has gotten better, and is ready to help contribute, where Nolan Arenado is only getting worse. For those of you who said, I've heard people say, well, it's J.J. Wetherholt. He was going to find a spot to play on the team regardless. Why would we trade away a guy for no reason? We traded away Arenado for no reason then. Go look at our infield and you tell me where J.J. Wetherholt was going to force his way in. You're not going to... Did the Cardinals want to be the team that had to bench Nolan Arenado, have him in the clubhouse unhappy saying, oh, this Hall of Famer, yeah, he's sitting there riding pine? It's hard to do. You fans would be upset. They wouldn't be understanding to it. Maybe eventually they would be. That's a hard thing to do. So you're not benching Arenado. Otherwise, at shortstop, where J.J. Wetherholt could play, Mason Wynn. Of course, he's the only solidified guy in our lineup right now. You know exactly where he's going. At second right now is Brendan Donovan. Were we going to bench Brendan Donovan to let him play? No. Alec Burleson, first base. Could Donovan go out to the outfield? Well, you want young guys like Victor Scott II and Jordan Walker to have every opportunity, and Lars Nootbaar could very well turn things around and has been one of the better hitters on the team in the recent past. Where was J.J. Wetherholt going to hit if we kept Nolan Arenado? Now, all of a sudden, J.J. Wetherholt has a position on the left side of the infield where he can grow up and be a star at third base from day one. None of this Nolan Gorman garbage that happened when he came up. The third baseman came up, had to hop around a bunch of different spots, never knew when his regular playing time was going to come, never knew what position he was going to play. Throw that out the window. How many Cardinals fans sat here and complained about us having Jordan Walker come up and down and play multiple spots in the outfield and not have a home, and maybe he'll play first base? We were all tired of that. The Cardinals, by trading Nolan Arenado, have freed up a spot for him to come in and play every single day and get the rookie treatment that he deserves. The opportunity to get playing time, which is something that Chaim Bloom has harped on, getting these young guys actual opportunity. Any guy in an MLB clubhouse who you've heard talk about, it's not like I know, MLB players talk about this. It's hard to get going when you don't play every day. Keeping Nolan Arenado on the team wouldn't have allowed that. So your top piece in your organization wouldn't have been able to have the correct curriculum and upbringing he would have needed. Instead, you would have had Nolan Arenado on your team, and the market said this is what Nolan Arenado is worth. If teams were clamoring, if the market was clamoring for more, they would have paid more. Who was going to pay more? He waited deliberately. This was a 15-month process of trading Nolan Arenado. And now we freed up the spot at the best offer we could get. And hats off to Nolan for what he meant to the organization, and hats off to the Diamondbacks for getting a good platoon player. But the Cardinals did what was best for them moving forward. Heim Blue mentions, we don't want to be here right now, but this is where we are. His quote, to be doing this regarding the Arenado trade and the number of trades we've done so far, you're only doing something like this as an organization if you're not where you want to be. No, we did not want to have to trade Nolan Arenado for pennies on the dollar, but we're not in a place where we want to be, Cardinal Nation. That's why we weren't showing up to games, and we're yelling at the DeWitts, and we're asking for Mozeliak's job. This is where we asked to be, and this is where we are now, and I think that's a good thing. And you can tell I'm passionate about it because I'm happy that the Cardinals are finally making moves. Wetherholt has a spot, and guess what this also does? Now this frees up, applies zero pressure to Brendan Donovan being traded. That's not saying that we're not going to trade him. But teams would look at our infield and say, well, they can see that we want to bring up J.J. Wetherholt. And they might apply pressure as some sort of leverage saying, well, you got to get rid of somebody, so you may as well toss us Donovan. We have zero leverage against us for trading Brendan Donovan, which means we can keep him in our team makes sense. That's a good thing. Some people are rooting for that. That'd be awesome. I'd love to bring Donovan back. Or now nobody has leverage for any reason for us to have to trade Donovan. We had to trade Donovan or Arenado, and we luckily traded the guy who makes no sense for the future to free up a spot for Wetherholt. Now the Donovan trade is only icing on the cake. And I will go back on this if Bloom trades him for nothing. If we do not get what we think we deserve for Donovan, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say that this was a failure. But now we get to either keep Donovan in a place that makes sense at second base, or we get to trade him without having to panic to find room for J.J. Wetherholt, which is something the Cardinals have struggled with in the past, is finding play time for the top prospects so that they can develop correctly. I'll talk more on this tomorrow. As you can tell, I have plenty to say on it. I want to quickly get to Jack Martinez, the guy we got in return. It's essentially nothing. I'm going to be honest. Jack, you seem great. I hope, let's go out for a Coke sometime. I bet we could get along fine. This is a nothing trade. He's a right-handed pitcher, 22 years old, out of Arizona State, who had a 5.47 ERA in his final year in college. He had some good strikeout stuff, but he was drafted in the 8th round. He hasn't played any sort of professional ball yet. Only like the top-level rookies get rushed to A ball in order to get them some play time. So not a lot of guys end up doing that. His fastball touches 97. Maybe we see him in the bullpen at some point. But the Cardinals have freed up a spot for J.J. Wetherholt. They have let Nolan Arenado move on to an organization where he can contend for something, and we did save some money. This was a good thing for Cardinal Nation, and we all need to wake up to it, and I'll talk more about that in the days to come. Thank you for tuning into the St. Louis Cardinals Daily Podcast. Again, my name is Andrew Teuscher. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button and keep building this community that we have, yelling at each other over the St. Louis Cardinals, which I love. Thank you.